Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com, here with your hurricane outlook and discussion for Saturday, September 1st, 2018. As we have talked about for the last couple of weeks at least, the tropics becoming more busy as we get into September, the favorable pattern moving out of the Pacific and into the Atlantic Basin gradually, slowly but surely, and lo and behold, we have Florence out here in the main development region, out in the deep tropics, another disturbance, gradually ramping up its percentage there for development in the southeast Gulf of Mexico and beyond. And lo and behold, things are starting to change. This was well telegraphed even a few weeks ago, back in mid-August, when Ben Knoll, I talk about him often on my updates, showed the ensemble prediction system from the European model, indicating that upward motion would be favorable across this area in September. And here we go. It might even be a little earlier than was predicted, but the model is not going to be spot on. You know, you don't hold it right down to, all right, at 2 o'clock things are going to start becoming more favorable. But here it is, and we have a lot to talk about. I'm mainly going to focus on the Atlantic Basin today. There is certainly a lot of activity in the eastern Pacific, but nothing threatening land. And of course there is the typhoon, and I believe it's pronounced JB, something like that. At least somebody was trying to explain that to me on the YouTube comments. Nevertheless, JEBI, out in the Westpac. Yes, it will impact Japan, but most of my audience is here in the Western Hemisphere, and we'll focus on that. All right? So looking at the satellite picture, the animation from tropicaltidbits.com, and let's change this to the color black. That'll be more helpful. There's Florence. This is our disturbance. Not quite yet an invest, an area of investigation. You've heard about that. 93L or 98L or whatever. It hasn't been labeled that just yet. Maybe that's coming. Maybe it's happening right now while I'm recording this, but as of the time I started this, which was about 3 o'clock Eastern, it wasn't. But that'll be the next phase, that this will get labeled as an area of investigation, and it looks like it's going to move in this general direction over time, somewhere into the Gulf. Where it ends up, we'll just have to wait and see. That's part of the process, trying to figure all of this out. And here is Florence, of course, trying to become more bundled, etc., as it moves off, and then eventually probably going to turn northwest, and more likely than not, it'll mill around and then eventually head out to sea. But that is not locked in, that it may come more west, and then high pressure builds out over the Atlantic, and it gets steered in more towards the U.S. or maybe even Bermuda. That story does not have a final chapter just yet. Stay tuned. So looking at the structure of everything this afternoon, right there, that's the vorticity signature of our system down in the Turks and Caicos. There's a little bit of energy right there, trying to bundle. Remember, that's what this has to show in order to, become more interested in it, so to speak. Bundling that energy around a common area of low pressure, not stretched out energy like this, or this mid-latitude storm system stuff up here. Even over the Gulf Coast here, there is some storminess there, and I'll show you that on the satellite picture here. Let's get rid of this. Remember, on the imagery, this is what we're looking at right there. All that, that's not bundling the energy at all, and you can see that on the vorticity signature here, spread out over a larger area, whereas this is trying to concentrate. And here's an example, TD17 in the eastern Pacific, Florence out here, west of the Cabo Verde Islands. Used to be the Cape Verde Islands. That's what I grew up with anyway, but things change. So that's what we're looking to see if that happens. So that's the little piece of energy that we can track right there. As far as upper ocean heat content, plenty of this available. The water is warm, and that water goes deep. The warm water is not just at the surface. Of course the water is deep. Well, it depends on where you are. But the warm water goes deep down, what we call the isotherm, 26 Celsius roughly, 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Let's just call it that. And the deeper that warm water extends, the more upper ocean heat content that you have, and that's delineated by these different gradations here on this map. And so the vicinity of where our system is, and all throughout the rest of its trek, assuming it's in the eastern Gulf, definitely has warm enough ocean heat content to work with. Whereas Florence, assuming it goes like this, will have a little bit of a struggle. And then maybe it gets more energy to work with, and the intensity of it, and not so much about how strong it is wind-wise, but more about how much it fills out the atmosphere. We'll talk about this more in the days ahead. I don't want to waste time speculating over something that's sitting right here. Let's change this color, by the way, to red. Why speculate about something here when we have more of an issue over here? You know what I'm saying? We'll look at it, but there's a long way to go for Florence, believe me. So let's just take a look at the latest Euro model. Okay, the European is regarded, the ECMWF, as the best global computer model. That doesn't mean it's perfect. Nobody says it's the perfect computer model. It's not HAL 9000 from 2001. Remember, it kept bragging that it never made a mistake, and it's perfect in every way. And you saw how that turned out. By the way, that movie's back in IMAX. I saw it the other day with my father on the big screen. So the Euro, while not perfect, it's considered very, very reliable. So here is the initial setup. 12Z today. Let's change this back to black. Not brown. There we go. So 12Z today. What does that mean? That means it was initialized, the initial set of conditions, at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, 12 Zulu or UTC. So here's Florence, indicated at the 5,000 foot level, the vorticity, nice and round for the most part. And the European sees, if you will, the vorticity down there. And this is very important, folks. Okay, let me get rid of this and go back to the vorticity analysis. That right there is that right there. See? So the European sees that, quote unquote. So that's good. We have a good initialization. It's not too weak. It's not overdoing it. I assume it's just right, or close to it. So that's the initial map. This is 24 hours out. And we see a little bit more of a flare-up. Still battling with the land masses of the Greater Antilles here. But there it is, trying to move towards the Florida Straits and the central Bahamas. We're going to zoom in on this more in a minute. Notice, too, Florence out here trying to hold its own. 48 hours out, just off of the Florida Keys. There's our system there. And again, I'll show you a zoomed-in version of this in a moment. There's Florence. Finally, we get to 72. Yep, then the Gulf there with that system. 96 hours making landfall, if you will, in southeast Louisiana. There's Florence in the central Atlantic. Kind of, the vorticity signature looks stronger, honestly, with this system than this system. All right, the more bundled energy, if you will. So maybe Florence is weaker at this point. We'll just have to wait and see. Finally, at day 5 and day 6, whatever this becomes over Louisiana starts to turn west, maybe into Texas. Big rainmaker coming up. And then there's Florence waiting for traffic to go by. Finally at day 7, and I think, then this is the zoomed in. So a week out, a lot has happened. We developed a system here, brought it across, maybe into Louisiana, then it turns west and south. Florence out here, other disturbances waiting to try to develop. And that's just the first week of September. All right, so let's zoom in here and take a look at the Gulf. We will worry about Florence in due time. Again, no reason. Of course, there's several different scenarios. Why even waste time? We can watch it and wait. The biggest issue is the Gulf system, the potential Gulf system. So as we zoom in here, this is what it looks like tomorrow morning, Sunday morning. There it is, the vorticity signature. It's weak, okay, honestly, but it's there. And you can see the Bermuda High, the western extension of it here, very nice and thick in the atmosphere. This will steer generally west-northwest through the Florida Straits, or maybe close to the southern peninsula, at 48 hours. And these are just the increments that I get from the Tropical Tidbit site. It's the publicly available free version of the Euro, so I don't have $100,000 a year to put into the high res, and I'm not going to show other people's copyrighted models. I'm not going to do that. But nevertheless, we do get this 24-hour increments, and that works for now. So here it is, just north and west of the Keys, maybe as a tropical depression, maybe as a tropical storm. It wouldn't surprise me. A small system. This is not a giant envelope of energy like Hermine was, taken forever to consolidate. These smaller systems can go fast. And that is the truth. I mean, just look at Umberto, '07. And an extreme example, the Labor Day hurricane of 1935. You get these very, very quickly developing systems from time to time when they're small like that. Somebody knocking at my office door, they'll just have to wait. I'm not going to start the video over. You're probably thinking, did somebody knock? Yes, they did, but my on-air sign should be on. Then, at 72 hours, a definite, I mean, come on, you can see that as well as I can. That looks like a healthy tropical cyclone in the open Gulf of Mexico. How strong it is, I don't know. But the fact is, it is seen by the model. It sniffs it out. The energy, it's there. And it's moving around the periphery of this very large, sprawling area of high pressure that you can see the outline of here over the eastern U.S., and then it really is going to come down. If we move out to 96 hours, it's just north of Grand Isle, and then finally 120 hours over west central Louisiana. Now, is this exactly what's going to happen? Of course not. But this is one scenario. What I am concerned with, or what I like to call keys to the game, or what to look for, whatever, the more it avoids the peninsula of Florida, first off, can't even talk there. First off, then the more it can intensify. And this track that it was showing where it does avoid most of the peninsula is interesting. See that? Da-da-da, right there, there. So starting here, let's assume that it comes up and it's more westerly with time and it comes in like that. You don't need me to tell you that the more time over water, the stronger this will become. And conversely, to be fair, if it comes up more like this into Mississippi, the 51st state, then it would have less time. And I tend to think, though, that this ridge is going to be strong enough that a more western track could end up being favored. And it won't surprise me if Houston, Galveston, maybe Lake Charles, is more of a landfall point in subsequent runs. That is not my forecast. I'm saying my instincts are telling me that, and especially if it gets stronger quicker, it would be steered more towards the west with time. And then what bothers me too a little bit here, let's go back through these frames. This is 48, 72, 96, 120. I should have put the last, 144, 168. They just weren't ready at the time I was doing this. It turns back this way. And so later, it starts to lose latitude again. So this is complicated, but I think the bottom line, the I-10 corridor through here, you're going to get a lot of rain. And maybe tropical storm, maybe outlier here. Hurricane conditions wouldn't surprise me. Intensity forecasting, forget about it. You just never know. So you folks along the Gulf Coast here, I hope this has your attention. And, if you're hearing about a tropical storm threat and you say, well, this is being all hyped out of proportion, it's just a tropical storm. Well, I would advise you to ask people in Louisiana about just a tropical disturbance in August of 2016 and what that did for their livelihoods in parts of Lafayette and Baton Rouge and vicinity. Even just a disturbance that never became a tropical depression can cause misery. This has the potential to be more. So I will be on top of it. In fact, there's a chance, depending on how things keep evolving, that I will find myself in a vehicle tomorrow heading for the Gulf Coast. Why? Why so early? What if that more western route takes shape and I have to be in Houston or Galveston or Lake Charles? I can't wait. It's better to, this is different than flying to Hawaii where you either go or no go, and you got to pick a time and do it. At least here in the States, if things change in the mainland, I can adjust accordingly. I can be in Gulfport, Mississippi in 12 hours, stuff like that. So I'll be watching this closely. I sense that there will be a field mission coming up. I just don't know where exactly. We will all watch it together. I encourage you to ask questions, post comments, etc. on the chat in YouTube. Our Patreon supporters, which is growing phenomenally, really appreciate that. We will be talking about it there. I'll talk about it on Twitter. And, of course, our HurricaneTrack Insider on our own private chat. This is the time of year when we do this. This is what I'm here for. So ask away, and I'll do the best I can to respond. Just be civil to each other. If somebody doesn't know what they're talking about, you don't have to throw them under the bus. All right? That's all I ask. All right, so that is it from me for today. I'll be back with more tomorrow, and we'll see what happens. Again, I will be posting tidbits here and there on these various, YouTube, the social media there, Twitter, and on Patreon. So it's not like in between these videos I'm silent. So ask away, talk away, discuss away. But most of all, have a great rest of your Saturday. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll have more for you on the video tomorrow. And there's the knock again. Isn't that classic? Perfect. I'm out. Talk to you again tomorrow.